Welcome to Imperial Advisor, everybody. So we've been having some technical difficulties since Cola left to be a fuller person, and we've been doing our best to resolve them. And the way we've mostly been doing it is blaming Baz. But from now on, we're in a bold new era. We're going to be blaming me instead. So we're having a go at fixing this. And specifically, the way we're going to have a go at fixing this is I'm going to run it for a bit and see what goes wrong when I do it. So it's going to be far worse for ages. And then eventually maybe it'll be better. But we'll see. So today we are here to chat about the Crane Pack. Because they put out the Crane Pack. Hey, it's the Crane Pack. All right.
Super fast as well.
Yeah, it came out faster than the Unicorn Pack. Which is crazy. But there we go. Oh yeah, also if anybody's bothered to watch us... please let us know if stuff goes wrong on the stream. I'm hoping it's working at the moment, but let me know when I get it all wrong. So we've got Kikita up, the new Crane Stronghold with +1 province strength. It is a palace, 11 honor, 9 influence, so a bit down there, 7 fate, and reaction. After a duel resolves, bow this stronghold and choose a character you control that was involved in the duel. Honor that character. Baz, thoughts?
Well, honouring characters is good. Any Crane character with an innate duel essentially has a once per turn honour up ability, which is pretty awesome. They don't even have to win the duel, they just have to be involved. And obviously that makes them a lot better for the next turn. So it actually powers up a lot of the kind of inconsequential duels. Ones where neither player really cares whether they win or lose. All of a sudden, Kikita gives a bonus for that. It looks good. It looks really good. How does it compare to the current Stronghold? It's a lot more proactive. The current Stronghold, you can play around it. A lot of people arguably say that there's no real ability to it because everyone plays around it anyway. So this will be a helpful change, I'd imagine. It definitely pushes them along the lines to get... Like, a lot of their cards require being honoured up or having honoured as a precondition. And this is a pretty easy way of doing it. So yeah, it looks pretty good. I think it'll just slip straight into existing decks without too much of a change.
Justin, any rebuttal?
No, not really. Basically, for most Crane decks, in an average 5-turn game, this will be honouring, 4 or 5 characters at least. That's potentially 4 or 5 more honor if you're honor running. It's a significant amount of increased stats. Probably somewhere in the region of +8 military and +8 political over the course of the game, and potentially more if you're honoring up characters with fate on them that can then assign to conflicts over multiple turns. It's a huge improvement over the old Crane Stronghold. I suppose I would make a slight rebuttal to what Baz said. Only insofar as the old Crane Stronghold was absolute garbage until you lost to it. And it was big, just the fact that it just sat there doing nothing for most of the game, and then on a critical turn, in a critical political challenge, you would find it bowing a character and you'd lose because of it. Regardless, I think Kikita is such a significant upgrade in terms of power. That it's pretty much a brainer for all decks. It makes it easier to play Voice of Honor, and now Voice of Honor is arguably just a better card than Forged Edict. The opportunity cost for playing Voice of Honor is now basically 0, almost 0. So it's just a counterspell without a drawback. And it turns on a bunch of the other cards that will be... Well, it turns on at least one other card we'll be talking about a lot later on. It just does everything that Crane want a Stronghold to do, pretty much. So I would expect this to be the go-to Stronghold for Crane for the foreseeable future.
Is it the honor running deck they've wanted?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure that dueling is in a place right now that makes it a viable honor running strategy. I think it's potential. You can't force your opponent to bid high numbers unless you're playing Miyamoto's Daisho. So in that regard, I'm not so sure. But the thing is, it's just like it's another 4 or 5 honor potentially on top of the other ways they have of gaining honor. So it may be just one small part of a puzzle that look toward or that adds to a viable honor. And I have a feeling that is pretty close.
All right.
And I would argue that it's a myth that the Crane are looking for an honor deck. I think the Crane focus, according to the player base and the designers often, has been excellence as the key defining thing. They just want the best cards. They just want to win all of the time. And whether that's winning duels, winning military provinces, winning political battles, that doesn't matter. I think this does push them towards that. I think one of the interesting parts of the kind of incremental honor games that the Crane get is that they're often able to run cards like Assassination and cards that have honor losses with relative impunity because they're still getting those few honor gains out of it on the other side. So yeah, it's not going to be an honor game Stronghold, but I think it'll put them into strong board positions, getting lots of characters beefy and honored, and you'll probably see more province and kind of bully dueling control elements going on rather than straight on running.
Yeah.
Next up, we have
So I just say Crane is very much, certainly on the basis pack, Crane is very much shaping up to be probably the dominant control fan of the game. And we just have a quick question in chat from Damajo, who asks, which clan do you think is looking for honor victory? I think 3 clans are theoretically capable of it at the moment, those being Crane, Lion, and Unicorn. I'm not sure any clan is specifically looking for an honor victory, but Eoin, thoughts?
I think Lion will try it because Lion are desperate, and they have a couple of tools to make them good at doing it. I think Unicorn have a janky deck there, but Unicorn are going to fall in love with their We Need Blitz deck and just play that forever. And I think Crane has a long history of being sort of one of the honor factions. So if there was a viable honor deck, and there's a couple of things in this pack that kind of push them a little towards an honoring dueling deck, and a lot of people like the concept of that, even if they don't play it at the moment. Older players mainly will want to play I duel you, I gain some honor. They want to play that deck, so this is kind of a way of doing that. Right, moving on to good question, thank you. Market of Kaze no Kami, which is a unique province. Marketplace, reaction after this province is revealed. Choose a character that is not honoured, bow that character, and is a water province. I am not impressed by this. I think Midnight Revels is better most of the time. I think this one has a small edge in a handful of cases, but Crane like having cheap guys, so Midnight Revels is usually fine for them. Maybe it's a little more reliable, but it's only a one-off. Midnight Revels is every time it's attacked. Yeah. So I'm just not that impressed.
I would agree.
Yeah, I mean, the only counterpoint I would make is the game coming faster and faster. And Crane, as much as Crane, like, they're a horde of 2-cost guys, they also like investing in expensive carrots. Because they do have some real knockouts in that regard. So in a highly tempo-based environment, market of Kaze no Kami probably just allows you to bow it when they come in. It is only on reaction, but if the game is fast enough, that probably doesn't matter as much, and you can guarantee this going off where you may not be able to guarantee Midnight Rebels going off. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would still say Midnight Rebels is overall a strong province, but there is an edge case.
You're going to be happier when the market triggers a lot of the time compared to Midnight Rebels, because with Marketplace you can essentially pick out anyone. Like, yeah, some characters on your opponent's board will be honored, but it's far more likely that your opponent isn't going to have that focus, and you'll have basically the pick of whatever you want, rather than having going for the highest cost character. Flip side of that, of course, is that the highest cost character on your opponent's board is probably going to be the best choice, but not always. But yeah, I mean, one less province strength. It only triggers once rather than every time it's attacked, which I have to admit I'm kind of surprised, having seen Midnight Rebels which I thought was progression in the design for provinces. And then we see a very similar market of Kazunokami, where they've gone back to just the on reveal approach. Maybe you're looking at a 2 of in your Seeker Water deck.
Yeah, maybe, but no.
I'd absolutely. I would say I think if Seeker of Water, you would have, and if you're playing Seeker of Water, I think you would absolutely play both those. I mean, what other ones are you going to play, really? Along the River of Gold.
Along the River of Gold and Midnight Revels. That's what I'd play if I was playing 2 Seeker of Water ones. Like.
I mean, you'd have a super defensive board. 50% of the time, you're probably banning something.
Yeah, you could play both of them, but no.
But at that point, you're playing Seeker of Water. How about just play anything else instead? Yeah.
All right, really briefly, Support of the Crane. Do we have anything new or exciting to say about support cards?
No, it's the same as before. I have to admit, playing the Dragon Dueling deck, I've liked the Crane Splash and would definitely be interested in splashing more. But yeah, you lose so much not playing Keeper Seeker.
It's brutal at the moment. I mean, somewhere down the road, maybe a couple of months, well, not a couple of months, but maybe a year, when there's a much bigger card pool and you can go, okay, I can have so much. Like, you look at some of those Crane cards, like the Lethal Duel that's coming up, some of them I'm going, oh, maybe if I had 18, but I mean, you're giving up, like, you're getting 5 more influence over Keeper, and you're giving up all those great Keeper cards. It's just too hard to justify most of the time. So I would imagine, yeah, this is going to... So you don't play unless, again, we put a format out there where you're required to play a support card, or required to choose between 2 support cards. But otherwise, I think, yeah, fine, it's there, it exists, at some point we'll use it.
Yeah.
Now, Wasaki Pupil, a very, very interesting geisha. 1 cost, 1 military strength, 1 political strength, 0 glory, geisha. Each player draws 2 fewer cards from honor bids during the draw phase to a minimum of 1. Justin, what are we thinking?
Yeah, I really like this card. I think this is fantastic. Really interesting. So there are 2 angles, I suppose, you could take with this card, 2 immediately obvious angles you could take with this card, one of which is maybe a bit more interesting. So, basically in terms of how this just affects the draw dynamic specifically, this means that probably all players are going to be bidding 1 while this card is in play. The reason being that if you bid 5, you're only going to be drawing 3 cards, and if your opponent bid them, they're going to be gaining honor, taking 4 honor from you and gaining it, and you will only be gaining 2 cards advantage for that sacrifice of 4 honor, which is simply not worth it in any shape, manner, or form. So she's going to be forcing players to bid 1 probably while she is in play. And this intersects with one of Crane's other focuses, which is forcing people to discard cards. So they have a bunch of cards like the Paragon. There are other cards like Spies. Crane have mechanics that force people to discard. And if you can put people in a position where they're bleeding out on honor incredibly fast, if they want to try and draw cards into their hand, or if they're forced into a position where they have to bid 1, even though their hand is being bled away by Crane's discard mechanics, then that's super powerful. And I think probably the power of the card is reflected by the fact that she doesn't have a Korti or Shigenda or Bushi keyword. She is simply a geisha, so basically she has no keywords whatsoever. So I would think that's probably a reflection of how powerful she actually works out in terms of play. So yeah, I really like this card. Interesting design, certain kinds of decisions, feeds into different styles of deck. Yeah, I'm thumbs up.
And wow, if you get 2 of them out, that is unpleasant. Everyone's bidding 1, I guess.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's like base apart for the discard. Or if Crane had, and the thing is, it works like if you've got Yashi as well. Like you can put players into a position where both players are forced to bid 1, and then you discard the favorite to Yashi, draw a whole bunch of cards, and you're miles ahead. So it just does.
Or play that dueling dojo and just keep drawing up cards every time you duel.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, suppress draw. There's a lot of ways to let this, so I expect us to see at least. Yeah, I expect us to see play for sure.
I think so. I think that's going to be, and at the one cost as well. And actually, 0 glory on a 1/1 is actually usually good value. I mean, Crane love honor and stuff, but you just want this character out there being slightly awkward and just messing with your opponent's plans, because so many clans want to basically bid 5 turn 1 and just get a whole heap of cards, and you know you can't do that. And if the deck is pressuring honor or pressuring dishonor, that's a whole heap of extra problem for them. You know, when you're bidding 5 and you're getting 3 cards, you're really feeling like and they lost 4 honor to it. You're really feeling disadvantaged. So it's strong card.
And like, I think when this comes out, everyone is bidding 1. I don't think you can, like, bidding 3 gets you 1 card, so you're not going to bid 3. Bidding 5 is going to be a big shift in honor, so you're not going to bid 5 or 4. Like, that is really rough. This, and maybe it's just the art, which, you know, everyone's wearing dark red kimonos. This really feels like a Scorpion card rather than a Crane card. Now, obviously, I know there's a lot of crossover and intersection, but especially with the 0 glory, it'll definitely be an interesting card.
I think this would be a pretty nasty card in Scorpion. I think it's a pretty nasty card in Crane, but it'll be a pretty nasty card in Scorpion.
Yeah, and you just support it with a bunch of card draw, and then that's a deck type.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So, thumbs up. I think it's very good.
All right. So next up, we have the 2-cost Beloved Advisor. 1 military strength, 3 political strength, 1 glory, courtier. Action: choose an opponent. You and that opponent each draw 1 card. So I look at this card and go, wow, those are some good stats. Even amongst the Crane, who have some phenomenal 2-drops, a 1/3 for 1 is not a bad stat line whatsoever.
2.
Like, you know, sorry, 1/3 for 2. Yeah, it's not a bad stat line whatsoever. I know they have some equivalent deals, but you got to look at the courtier trade is good. 1 glory is not ideal. They'd like 2, and the action: choose an opponent. You and that opponent each draw cards. This is kind of getting into their bid low but draw outside the phase. This card has a lot of utility if you play the variant multiplayer. Outside that, is the Beloved Advisor going to find a place in your deck? Any ideas, Baz?
Well, as you said, the stats are pretty good, but you know you're already competing with some pretty good stat lines. Stat line, I guess, is kind of equivalent to Doji Narishima, who actually has gone back in to see some play in Crane decks after dropping out briefly. You know, I believe it's because the number of holdings of use have increased, so there's kind of more of an incentive to flip those promises. The actual ability itself: choose an opponent. You and that opponent each draw 1 card. Is that good or not? Is the real question. You need to be in a position where your card quality is better than your opponent's. With this character, it kind of feels like you're basically blanking your character out a lot of the time, because if you're giving your opponent that card as well, then you're not benefiting in any way. You know, it's basically it's a blank card, but you're just both getting a bonus out of it. So based on that, I don't think so, unless they are able to get some additional triggers off your opponent drawing a card. But I can't imagine that there would be any effects in there.
Well, ways of getting advantage of this, I could see. If you have Guest of Honor out and you're successfully keeping your Guest of Honor active, Beloved Advisor is much more of a... It's like some of their cards will still be relevant, but a bunch won't be when you draw a Beloved Advisor. So at the right turn, hey, go in, go, hey, we're in battle now, Beloved Guest of Honor's here, let's just draw a card. I can play this card, definitely. I don't know if you can, but I can definitely play it. And there are other ways. Don't they have something about some guy that limits how many cards you can play? Tuturi. Tuturi's another way of doing it.
Yeah, but that's both players.
Yeah.
I think, again, if you're going back to the Crane discard focus, if Crane can draw you a card and then make you discard that card, then effectively you haven't drawn a card at all. Again, I think you're probably in a dire situation if a Crane player is doing that to you anyway. But honestly, I think it could, like, if Crane go for a dedicated courtier deck, or a deck in which courtier is just important to have as many courtiers as possible, then on the stats alone, I think it could see play. and the ability then is basically niche, but potentially okay.
Yeah, I think you need to get more leverage out of that ability somehow before this card is going to wow me.
I like seeing cards on the card, but symmetric is not the best.
Yeah, so I mean, symmetrical is never great, but I do think that Crane have access to mechanics that make this a little less symmetrical. So I mean, yeah, just with the power, both draw a card, and then I'm going to make you draw a card. So yeah, I mean, it's a card that I think will probably play more on the strength of its courtier trait than it will necessarily on its ability. But I wouldn't discount the ability 100%.
Yeah.
All right, another 2-coster, and like this is the big problem. Crane's 2-costers are fantastic. They got probably the best lined up 2-costers in the game. Kikita Favorite, 3 military, 1 political, Bushi Duelist, 1 glory. This character gets +2 politics while is involved in a duel. So, we were talking about the Doji Norishima. This guy is a non-unique Doji Norishima with a trait rather than active ability. Norishima is seen play mostly on the strength of his stat block and his synergy with holdings. This character does not have that synergy, and 3 politics is modest in a duel without extra equipment. Is this guy going to cut the mustard? Justin, any ideas?
Yeah, potentially. Again, the duelist keyword is the thing that stands out to me here. On the basis of his stats alone, I don't think so. Like 2-cost characters, it's the worst. It's the worst costing for a character in the game because it's the highest investment for the greatest amount of punishment when a character gets ascended. Crane do have a fantastic array of 2-cost guys, but in a deck that is dedicated to dueling, maybe. I don't know. This guy seems very, very marginal at best for me. I think Crane just have characters that do all that this guy does and do it better with less.
Yeah, I think so. I think if it's been brought up in chat that if they had a few more politics duels, he might see some play, and he might. But I think he's pretty marginal at the moment, despite a fantastic stat line. Like 3-1 for 2 is incredible. You don't see that value much, but yeah, doesn't seem to be enough. All right. Next up,
he's got awesome flavor text though.
He's got brilliant flavor text. Let's take a look.
I will say that the Kikita Dojo is absolutely fantastic, and right now, you're looking for Kaizen or Toshimoko or Challenger to get that going. Maybe the favorite will make that a little bit more reliable, and that might be worth consideration.
Alrighty. Yep. So into the 3-costers. 3-cost maker of Keepsakes. 3 military, 3 politics, Shigenja Heir, 2 glory. This character cannot receive Dishonored status tokens. Interesting. Looking at her, we've got a incredibly solid 3-cost 3/3 stat line. We've got a significant Shigenja trait. I believe Crane have not been overly blessed with cheaper Shigenja. A lot of 4-costers. 2 glory, and particularly at the moment, I mean, wow, like Crane are really good at honoring their guys, even better with the new Stronghold. Get her up to a 5/5. Now, she cannot receive Dishonored status tokens. However, I believe she can be dishonored out of being honored. So you can take her from honored to neutral, but you can't take her from neutral to negative. I believe is the case. So this is a very solid stat block. It's got defense against, say, getting dishonored twice. There's not a lot of value in kind of mark shaming her or anything like that. So instead, it's a resilient body. The 2 glory will never act against her. It may act for her. So yeah, that's a very solid body. In a 3-cost slot. Is it good enough though? I mean, they've got so many 3-cost characters with good abilities. Is that enough?
I don't know about you, Justin, but I like my 3/3 Shigenjas for 1.
Yeah, no, 3/3 for 3. It just feels so 2017. Yeah, for me, this is a pretty mediocre. It's a mediocre Shigenja, but in the context of where the Crane are, mediocre is basically a step up. So So yeah, no, pretty decent, pretty decent. I wonder, so she can't receive dishonored status tokens, but can she be dishonored?
She can be dishonored, take her from honored to no token, but she cannot get
To
a
take
dishonored
yeah.
token.
So in that case, she's amazing. She's an amazing spy at court.
Yes.
She's great for stuff like that. So again, she probably slips into that kind of deck where Crane just make you discard your hand, and apply the chokehold, and then just whisper shh in your ear until you finally pass out.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Next up, Kikita Yori. 3 cost, unique. 0 military, 3 politics. 0 not zip. 2 glory, courtier duelist. Action. During a conflict, initiate a politics duel against a player or character your opponent controls of his or her choice. Resolve the duel. The controller of the duel's losers cannot declare military conflicts this phase. So, Baz, how did the unicorn like that?
Yeah, the unicorn definitely aren't going to like that. But for me, it's a bigger deal that it's a free duel with no consequence for losing. So if you attacked with Yuri and then initiate it during the political conflict,
nope, military conflict.
Yeah, you won't do the other round. Okay, so if you did it the other round, it'd be kind of silly. But either way, it's a duel. If you're not intending to clear military conflicts, you can trigger the Kayut and Kikita with basically no consequences. You've got a duel, and you're bringing this to a 2-5 almost immediately, whether your opponent decides to win or lose that particular duel. But yeah, if you're able to lock down one of the military clans on this, that's an entire turn where they're not able to attack in their favorite conflict, and that's pretty big. So as a Crane player, you might be able to attack with impunity in a political conflict, and they just can't defend, because if they do defend, especially if they're looking at HMD or something like that, they lose their entire turn almost completely, which is terrifying. Similarly, if they're attacking in their first military conflict, you can actually defend and then lock them out of later ones. And a courtier and a duelist as well. Yeah, this looks like a really, really good character. I am quite enamored with Kikita Yori.
A thing I was thinking about there is she's got a great combo with is it the Kikita protagonist, the one that harpoons people into the battle to make sure, hey, you are actually getting you are getting hit.
The challenger.
Yeah, the challenger. And then the other thing I was thinking about is, wow, the Rhino hates her. So if you're sending the Rhino, or him, sorry, you're sending the Rhino in, you want to send only people with dash politics in, because you don't want to get dueled on the Rhino, because you'll blow yourself out if you use the reaction. So yeah, I'm a fan. I think that's strong. Any thoughts, Justin?
Yeah, this guy single-handedly makes dash politics in military clans really important to him. Moto Horde, dust off your sabers. It's time. I'm not a huge fan of the design of this character. It's obviously powerful. It's very, very strong. But again, it just feels like FFG falling into the easy trap of simple binaries. You can do this, you can't do that, which takes away player agency. It's, it removes choice, or removes a lot of choice from parts of the game. And as you were saying, with the challenger being able to harpoon guys in and then have you duel them, that is not going to feel particularly wonderful if you're a military clan. I would expect this guy to be an automatic 3 of inclusion, just because of the damage that he can do to certain clans. But yeah, just not a fan of the design direction here.
Yeah, it is. There is an interesting strain of lockout coming out of the Crane.
Oh, well, interesting.
Yeah, I'm being nice. Not like regressive
and
design.
And there's another character later where we're going to see as well.
I think we're I think he's coming up right now.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, you have it with the Kenku as well. I mean, you have the potential for a deck featuring Asahina Takamori, and it's entirely possible that, assuming you get past the first couple of turns, your opponent may simply not be able to interact in the game whatsoever, and that's just shit design. However effective it might be, whether it's good or not, I don't know, but it's shit design. So, yeah, hopefully we see less of this.
So, let's take a look at Asahina Takamori. 4 cost, unique character, 0 military, 0 politics, 3 glory, courtier, Shigenja, heir, daimyo. Reaction: after you play a Crane character, choose an opponent's character with equal or lower printed cost. That character cannot be declared as an attacker or defender this round. Okay, well, I look at this person and go, that is a bit of a monstrous effect. It is only once per turn, but you can react to him coming out. So I can see some interesting stare downs happening in the dynasty phase when you're like, okay, who do I make? And when's Takamori coming out? Now, once he's in play, I think he's oppressive. But bringing him into play is going to see for like this is where you've got to be looking very closely what your opponent has in his provinces, because that's going to inform all your decisions here. Because if you make a good 4-drop, a killer 4-drop, put some fade in it, and your opponent just make Takamori in response, you've time walked yourself. You've really hurt yourself very badly. So I look at this and go, whew, that's rough. That's really, really rough. Baz, any thoughts?
Yeah, the interplay in this is quite interesting, actually. Because it has to be equal or lower printed cost, it does mean that you really want to make a big character to maximize your targets. So, I mean, Asahina Takamori will hit 4 or less, which is basically the majority except for the big clan daimyos. And after that, you have a couple of options. Like, you can always, later in the game, drop a conflict character and use that to leverage it. So you can use that 3 cost character they have, just drop it down, lock someone out they can no longer defend, and then attack with that covert, locking out somebody else, which is pretty strong, actually, thinking about it. But it does mean that when you're looking at just a dynasty phase, there is actually an incentive to delay, which isn't something we've seen before. Like, the strategy has always been to pass first and try to aggressively get that phase. But if you're going to be able to make the character after the Crane player has made theirs, then you're in a position where they're not going to be able to choose that character they've just made. Now, obviously, there'll probably be plenty of other targets around. Cannot be declared as an attacker or defender this turn. For 90% of characters, that just is a 1-turn kill. Like, if they've got no fade on them, you basically just remove them from the game, because majority of characters need to be able to attack or defend. The only thing you can do after that is contribute your glory. So yeah, this looks like a pretty strong card, and it's going to be a real.
And I gotta say, against some of the tower decks that are leveraging Murmur's Dice Show to become a Dishonor engine, this guy's a blowout. You really gotta, finger jade him or something. Like he could just completely mess with the plan.
Yeah.
Justin, any thoughts?
Yeah, he's amazing, and I hate him. I mean, okay, so when you take a look at kind of the standard Crane build, the Crane going to be playing 3 Doji Uji. They will be probably 3 Kikita Yori. They will be playing 3 Guest of Honor, and those 9 characters are basically a given, almost written in stone. And then on top of that, you've got Asahina Takamori. And plus, they have a selection. I mean, they've got a few others. They like Tashiboka's another 4-coster they can play. You've got the Kenku if you want on 5. So Crane have a really solid top end in terms of characters that are well worth playing, completely independent of this guy's ability. So Takamori will slip very neatly into those decks, and as you said, he on his own basically shuts down tower decks. Like, if you're a tower deck and this guy lands and you answer, you just So what this guy may end up doing is, I mean, he may not, but he's only really weak against swarm decks. Swarm decks are going to be a significant weakness. However, Crane have a fantastic answer to swarm decks, because the swarm decks we have at the moment are almost exclusively mid. So with this guy and with Yori, the previous preview, we thought Crane have a 1-2 punch to really aggressively attack and shut down multiple archetypes within a single deck. And neither of the cards is independently bad in any way. So the opportunity cost for playing them is for playing that style of deck is actually pretty low. Admittedly, his 0/0 stats aren't great, but he does have 3 glory. A canny Crane player is going to hold back a Way of the Crane or some other means to honor him. And he will very likely be a 4-cost 3/3 who has just shut your opponent's best character down when he hits the board. I mean, again, really oppressive, really binary kind of mechanics here, which I am not a fan of at all. But that said, he may not be as oppressive in play, and certainly if the game swings toward a more swarm-oriented meta, then he becomes significantly worse. But
just looking at his stats, I mean, you are essentially making a 4-cost character, but sacrificing that 4-cost character to negate one of your opponent's characters, and then
there's a real difference here, though, is that basically the character that you're removing is gone. Like, they cannot attack, they cannot defend, and this is a game primarily about attacking and defending.
Yeah.
But even with 0/0 stats, if you've got a Banzai in your hand, you can still go over and crack a province.
Yeah, and Takamori is a courtier and Shigenja as well, so it's
and he is
his keywords are fabulous.
Yeah.
What I will say, his stats are terrible. However,
yes,
the one thing I'll say for them is you get no value off dishonoring him unless he's honored. Like, you can dishonor this guy, it does nothing. But you got to save that dishonor for when he's become honored, because that way you can get something off him. If you can honor, as Crane can honor people at the drop of the hat, like, not off the new Stronghold for him. Well, you could do it off the new Stronghold for him, but it'd be generally a bad idea. But honoring him and then be like, okay, he's honored now, go in. Then your opponent has to have a counter, and you'll notice in the you're not gonna keep a Crane character dishonored most of the time unless you're Scorpion, because you could be I'm running 3 court games. Okay, well, they're running away at the Crane and 3 court games, and they've got their Strongholds, so there's much less pressure, and they've got their, if they're playing air, they got honor a guy twice now. Yeah, he's probably going to have some stats. You got to work a bit for them, and they're not great stats, but he'll have some stats, But yeah, 0/0 is terrible stats, but he's got to be terrible stats with that ability. It's a monster ability.
And I think we're going to see him with Menacing Iron Warrior and Political Rival. Those 3-cost conflict characters are going to help him shut down characters at will. When you want to, you just pick someone 3 costs or less and just
Very little works against the ability as well. I think Finger of Jade counters it, and the Phoenix Yojimbo counters it. Is there much else?
In theory, you could Kiriko to bow that 0/0.
Yeah, movement counters it, but we have a bit of a dearth of movement. So yeah, well, I think he's strong. I think he's very strong. All right, next up, Benevolent Host. Another 4-coster. 2 military, 2 politics, 2 glory, courtier. Reaction. After you play this character, choose a courtier in your province, put that character into play. If that character has a printed cost of 2 or lower, put 1 fate in it. Wow. Justin, is this a Timmy card for the big giant plays, or is this actually value?
It's reasonable value. That said, you are quite restricted in what you can bring into play, and I'm just trying to think, just kind of going through the list of Crane's top quality leaders, and there aren't actually a lot of kind of single-use fire forget courtiers that you want to be played that I can think of. I mean, Yoshi, you'd rather have him around for a bit longer. But I suppose if you're getting one use off him, then you don't mind either way. But apart from that, guest of honor. I mean, guest of honor you want around for longer.
Yeah,
So
but
I think
even if you're looking at guest of honor or Yoshi, like, are you going to pay? You're essentially paying 4/4 for a bonus of the 2/2.
yeah, and then flips on to Winter Court Hosts, which is actually the ideal card that you want to bring into play with this guy. So essentially you're looking. I mean, it's the fact that it's courtier restricted. If it wasn't courtier restricted, the card would be absolutely. But given that it is courtier restricted, if you want to make sure that this card is reliably gaining you, or is reliably useful and reliably putting good value on them, then you need probably hurt your deck in terms of deck construction before you ever get to put this card into play. And from that point of view, I'm not that massively impressed. I mean, obviously the high roll with Benevolent Host is super. Yeah, I'm not massively convinced by this. I have to say, it's decent, but I mean, I could be completely wrong. It could be completely ridiculous. But it has a feeling of a card that you're going to play a few times, and it's just not going. It's not going to work a couple of times, and then you're just going to cut it from your deck because, like, L5R is a game where if you stumble on a single turn, you've lost the game.
It feels,
and this is the kind of card that will make you stumble.
If you have the right deck built, if you can go, okay, I'm almost all courtiers, and I look at this as kind of nearly a 1-cost 2/2 that might get me a 2-coster with a fate on it. Effectively, that's my value. I've got 2 bodies and I got them in 1 action. So that there's something to that. You might think, okay, sometimes it's a 2/2 and I also get a big guy for a turn. On the right turn, I think this is a really high roll card. And then there are other turns where it's complete junk. It's like you look at this, go, this does nothing. It's awful. So yeah, I mean, I'm not amazingly convinced by this card, but
you flip this and you've got no other courtiers in your provinces. It's
a disaster. But I think this deck has, if this goes into a deck, it goes into a deck that is 20 courtiers in it minimum.
Now, one of the nice things about this is because you're making them both characters at the same time, you're far more likely to actually get that 1 fate for passing, which is kind of nice.
It is, and you might go, "Hey, Benevolent Host! I'll make a Benevolent Host. I'll make a Winter Court Host. Woo!" And the other turns will be like, "Yeah, nothing. I got nothing here."
Yeah.
But I think it's a bit of a high roll card. But if there's a courtier deck, it'll be really good in that. But I think it's big. Now, okay, let's get on to the actual. Let's get on to the showstopper, the number 1 stunner in this pack. Let's get on to the 5-costers. And that 5-coster is Doji Uji. 5-cost, unique, Doji Uji. 6 military strength, 2 political strength, 2 glory, Bushi, Daimyo, Shinobi. While this character is honored, you may play each character in your provinces as if it were in your hand, reducing its cost by 1. Doji Uji is one of the talismanic characters of the Crane clan, one of the fan favorites from the old game. And he was always kind of slightly dodgy often in his card version, but really cool from a thematic point of view. He was in charge of the Harriers. He was the guy doing the dirty work for the Crane. He looked like the Shredder. He was awesome. We've got here a Doji Uji who warps the game for the Crane clan. So he's got stiff conditions. He is a 5-coster, right? And to get full value out of him, you kind of want to play him for full cost. When you do, all of a sudden, your goal is to honor him. And once you got him honored, and you can keep him honored, and again with Crane, that's not impossible. You have a character who privileges how you play the game. Now, we've seen in the metagame of Alpha 4 so far, what's become common is people going, right, I pass as quickly as I can and get that extra fate. When you have that Doji Uji out, your first action can be pass and take that fate. And then, whenever I need any of the guys in my provinces, they show up and they cost less. he is a monstrous economic and tactical club to smash your opponent with. Uji comes out, Uji gets honored, and at which point he's an 8-4, and all of a sudden more guys come out, and your only option is, oh my god, I've got to get Ring of Fire, I've got to take that honor token off him, he's killing me. Because all these guys in the province are going to pop out for cheaper. I'm going to play the Asahina Daimyo we're all just complaining about for 3, and trigger him as a 4 because he works off printed cost. He's brutal. Thoughts?
Don't get clouded.
Don't get clouded.
Yeah,
is a good one.
That would be the main one. Yeah, he's amazing. He's not quite as good as Tika, but not far off. Yeah, he very much changes the game when he hits the table. If you don't have an answer to this guy, he's going to do all the things you just described. He's a huge economic advantage. He's a huge tactical advantage, as well as being a massive beat stick in his own right. Yeah, there's just not a lot to say. Immediate top tier character. Yeah.
So the obvious comparison is Hidden Moon Dojo, which obviously is one of those power cards. But one of the things about Hidden Moon Dojo is you can get it turn 1, and that's kind of where it's been the most warping. The Scorpion player flipped it in the middle. Turn 1, they're able to pass straight away and then just drop in characters from their Dynasty deck whenever they want. Doji Uji isn't quite like that. You certainly can make him turn 1, but if you do, you're after going for a big investment on a single character, which is not the standard way to play these days. If you go for him turn 2, and any turn that you actually pay for him, you're probably not going to be able to utilize his ability as much as you'd like. Now, obviously, if you've got some 1-cost characters sitting in a province, that's just gold. You're able to drop them in straight away. But you're probably looking at maybe turn 3 or turn 4 before you can actually utilize Uji, where you'll actually have him in play. You'll get him honored up. You'll have the fate. So yeah, he is fantastic. I don't think in any way, shape, or form he's like Tadaka level, and he doesn't have the duelist trait. He isn't a courtier. He isn't a Shigenja. We're probably going to see some more Bushi cards, which will make it a little bit more relevant. And the Scorpion players have certainly assured me that he is one of the best Shinobi in the game. Is a sore point, I believe. Yeah, I think he's an excellent character. I'm not upset by him, as I maybe have been by a couple of other characters. I don't feel like a mistake has been made at the power level they've made him. I think he goes into decks, and I think the Crane players will be delighted when he appears. But I definitely don't think he's going to be able to
We were asked in the chat about a comparison to Uji versus Tadaka. Uji is a massive enabler for the Crane strategy, whereas Tadaka tends to cripple your opponent's strategy. So Uji is going to feel less oppressive to play against whatever happens, because Tadaka is maybe, like, I've had games against Tadaka where Tadaka's done nothing to me because I just had a bunch of different cards in my hand, so I was like, yeah, I've got no duplicates, so whatever, and I can get Earth if I really need it. But whereas Uji is, you're never going to feel like, wow, I can't play this because of Uji. You'll feel like, wow, Uji's kicking the crap out of me by bringing in more Crane. So that's what your problem's going to be. I think they'll both be difficult to play against, but they're difficult to play against in very different ways. I'm not sure that helps a lot, but yeah.
Like if Uji wasn't on the board, the Crane player could make those characters out of their provinces during the Dynasty phase. They wouldn't get the cost reduction, and they'd have a lot less flexibility. But there will be games in which, even though Uji is played, he's not going to actually have much of an impact, purely because the characters that they're bringing into play, they would have made anyway. Now, where Uji can have a big impact is when the Crane player has to decide in the Dynasty phase between bringing in a 3 to 4 cost character or not. And as the turn progresses, if they did bring them into play, it would have been overkill. So it was wasted investment, even if it's just by a point or two of fate. And that can really shift the game. That can be game warping completely. But that scenario doesn't always appear, and often it's a judgment call on the part of the player. So sometimes it can be a 50-50 whether it's going to happen or not. Whereas Tadaka, wins games.
Yeah. All right. Uji is not the most expensive card in this, most expensive character in this pack, however. That honor belongs to the Winter Court Hosts. 6 cost, unique, despite not having a name. 2 military, 7 politics, 3 glory, courtier, no attachments, which, as we all know, is not usually a disadvantage at all. Reaction, after your opponent plays a card during a conflict in which this character is participating, if you are more honourable than your opponent, draw 1 card. Unlimited. Baz, you were wondering earlier, was there a way to advantage yourself for both players getting more cards? Well, here's another one. What do you think?
Yeah. This kind of feels a little bit like the Scorpion Clan Champion, where, this is going to be a 10 politics character coming over to break your province, and you're going to be like, yeah, okay, there you go, enjoy. It's with characters like this, it's probably better to just stay out of the way and not worry about it. We've certainly seen, and I've certainly lost games by playing cards, because playing cards is fun, but conflicts are all about not playing cards and minimizing your loss, or just barely scraping a win. A situation where every time your opponent plays a card, you get to draw a card. Like that's an absolutely stonking ability. That is absolutely amazing. I look forward to copying it with Yakuni one day.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Justin?
Yeah. I think the main problem is that the ability is almost never gonna go off, because your opponent is going to see basically your opponent has to be in a position where they are contesting against 7 politics probably, and most players just going to go, yeah, not interested, and they're going to step out of the way, and the Winter Court Hosts are going to break a province, and they're going to work out to be an incredibly expensive way to break a province, and will probably lose you the game because of it. Obviously, Benevolent Hosts is the high roll. You get Benevolent Hosts, you bring in Winter Court Hosts, and you go to town. I don't know, maybe you play this super sneaky, and you attack military with Winter Court Hosts just to force your opponent to contest. I don't know, but then they just don't get in the way anyway. It's again, in common with basically all the 6 costers, they're just too expensive, and they don't have enough of an impact on the game. Like the only one, Fashicho is the only one I think that really still has a place in a competitive deck. The other 6 costers just don't. You can never afford to buy them out of your provinces. They never reward that kind of. They never reward the investment that you're required to make. And yeah, so combo card with Benevolent Hosts. Apart from that, I don't expect it to ever see play.
Yeah, I can see the charge out of this one. Everyone going, really? This is the way you went with this? Okay. The hostists with the mostists from the Benevolent Host and the Winter Court Hosts. So you'll have people talking about the double host roll, but yeah, I don't see it coming up that much. All right, on to the holdings. Distinguished Dojo, +2 province strength. Dojo, reaction, after you win a duel, place 1 honor token on this holding. Then, you may sacrifice this holding to gain honor equal to the number of honor tokens on this holding, limit 3 times per round. Doesn't need to be activated in the battle you're in. So, Justin, thoughts?
It's interesting. Certainly, it's not difficult to set up 3 jewels in a single turn, and then sack it and gain 3 honor. And combined with the honor you will gain from honored characters leaving play, yeah, I mean, these could mount up. I mean, the question is this just going to be a better? Is this ever going to be a better strategy than using the incidental honor gains you get from honoring and from jewels to fuel assassinations, which gives you board control, which just allows you to roll over your opponent's provinces more effectively. Yeah, I'm just not sure. I think this card is good, and I think this card absolutely can be good, but I'm just not certain that there is enough of an impetus to play a deck that absolutely goes all in on this style of honor gain, rather than playing a more rounded strategy that is still probably going to be equally, if not more, effective. So for me, it's a card that could be good in the future, but for right now, I'm not sure. But that said, if there is a Crane Honor deck, I'm almost certain this is going to be part of it.
It's potentially a lot of honor, and if you
Yeah.
decide to stack rebuild, it could be a lot of honor. But wow, you need a lot of duels. Baz, any thoughts?
So it's 3 times per round. So you can, you could do it over 3 consecutive turns and then blow it on your 9th duel to get 9 honor. So you don't necessarily have to sacrifice it straight away, but obviously it poses a risk. How much of a risk it really is, I'm not sure, because you can always just defend and then duel and then pop it after you win the duel. Winning duels really shouldn't be too hard. The big dilemma, I think, with this is it's another holding. It's never going to replace Kikita Dojo, which I think is absolutely amazing and sets up the duel in the first place. It's at that point, in my opinion, directly competing with Proving Dojo, which is drawing you extra cards when you duel. So would you rather get a point of honor or draw a card when you duel? I think I'd probably rather get that card, and hopefully that card will get me at least 1 honor, if that's what I'm going for.
I suppose you could combo this with Miramoto's Daisho for an absolutely enormous honor explosion.
Yeah, but you got to win.
Limited.
Yeah, but you set up your Daisho, character, and and then you bomb someone with 3 jewels. Presumably, you're gaining Daisho off that. You're gaining 3 honor from the 6 honor off a single conflict. You could be burst over 20.
Yeah, so, and you don't even have to splash out with Dragon. A Yatsu Master is a once per turn one where you can get that extra point of honor out. So it's certainly the direction you can go. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Kikita Blade will get you an extra one if you really want to go full down. Yeah.
Yeah, but not if you've got a Daisho, and I think the Daisho is just going to be better. So you play 3 Daisho, as many let goes as you fit, and attempting to explode on in over the space of a single conflict.
Yeah.
There could be a deck there, but like you said, that means you're not playing cards like the Kikita Proving Grounds, and that card is just better than this. That card helps you win, whereas this card rewards you for winning, and cards that help you win always
are better for winning with.
Yeah. Sorry, obviously. So this rewards you for achieving, whereas Kikita, the Proving Grounds, actually gives you something that allows you to further your main objective. So yeah, there's definitely possibilities with this card, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, it's the same problem Crab have had. There's a glut of really good holdings floating around, but you can only handle so many.
Yeah. All right, and we've got an old Elf War story reference, I believe. This is Yusuke Fuzaki, who was, I believe, Rich Wolf's character in the stories he wrote in Rakugan 2000.
Yeah.
So this is 3-cost Crab Clan character, unique, Yusuke Fuzaki, 2 military, 3 politics, 0 glory, Shigenja, Earth, interrupt. When this character leaves play, choose up to 1 character controlled by each player, discard each status tokens from each of those characters. Now, what do I think of this guy? I think he is overcosted at 3. I would far prefer to have him at 2 cost with lowered stats. So maybe if I really needed to, I could assassinate him to strip off some status tokens. As is, I can probably sack him off some of my sacrifice tech, but man, I'm just dishonor and a crab being dishonored isn't usually crippling. It's usually 1 stat off. It can be important to take off an honor token off someone if you're playing dishonor deck, but yeah, not a massive fan. I kind of feel he's a bit of a swing and a miss. We've got a 3-cost Shigenja already, and that character does not see a huge amount of play. So, yeah, I would have preferred something in a different cost slot here. As is, yeah, he feels like sack fodder, but 3 cost is very expensive for sack fodder. And the 3 cost slot in Crab, you can get some pretty potent characters. So I'm not incredibly convinced at all. Anyone like to disagree?
No disagreement.
It's the Shigenja.
Yeah, I mean,
think that's a notable thing.
Yeah, he's a Shigenja. I mean, it's just a really interesting effect. But I think we're still haunted with the core set. There are so many overpowered cards and overpowered mechanics and dynamics in the game that abilities and characters like this just don't get a look at. They just can't compete with the power level that was established in core. So it's a shame. But
yeah, looking at the character's design, like there's always a challenge within the clan packs where you're trying to design cards that in some way hinder the main clan. So it absolutely makes sense that removing a status token would be relevant. The thematically, it makes sense for the crab because they don't really care about honor or dishonor, and if they've got any dishonorable characters, they can honor them up. But for the decks that they have, I don't think this is a card that they really care about. So you've got a card that maybe the Crane would be a little annoyed to see, but actually, it's directly counter to kind of the crab team of sticking around because it's an interrupt when this character leaves play. So yeah, it's anti-Crane, but it's not. It doesn't link up
pretty
with any of the crab stuff.
Yeah. Pretty expensive for a sack character as well. Being a 1-cost 1/1 might have. You would not have been disappointed. He probably would have been quite playable on his own.
But, yeah, absolutely.
But a 3-cost 2/3.
Yeah, pretty much the wrong stat line. All right, let's take a look at another 4-cost dragon, Kitsuki Jusai. Unique, 4-cost, 3 military, 4 politics. After the honor tiles are revealed, if your honor bid is equal to an opponent's, move 1 fate from that opponent's fate pool to an unclaimed ring. Baz, is this guy going to steal our fate?
Probably not. The courier deck hasn't really developed yet, although this definitely makes a push towards it. 4 costs for a 3/4, is that good? I think that might be good with 2 glory. The ability itself, so if they're equal, and that happens a lot, so 5s and 1s happen all the time, move 1 fate from that opponent's card pool or fate pool to an unclaimed ring. And you get to do it. So yeah, he looks decent. He actually looks quite good. Shutting or cutting down your opponent's production to 6 per turn is strong. The stats aren't terrible. I just don't have any love for him, unfortunately. It's the courier. I think if he was anything but a courier, I'd be a lot more interested. And maybe if he did something a little bit more proactive, I feel, stealing a face. And we've got a couple of cards to interact with that, so maybe there's more to play there that we haven't quite got into yet. And that could get really dangerous if Dragon actually do manage to get a dedicated fate denial, core resource denial deck. That could get really, really scary. Now, another factor in that is this is after bid dials are revealed. So if your opponent chooses, they can try and meddle with their dials so it doesn't trigger. So you're looking at maybe 2s or 4s, and you get into a bit of a guessing game. Or they just spend all their fate, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it does mean that there are ways to play around it. So, yeah, it's not a card I'm going to immediately put into a deck necessarily to try out, but it'll certainly be something I'll be keeping an eye on.
So best case in the honor, the dueling deck, which is essentially hoover up all your honor Murmur's die show, you both get locked into a 1 bid early. He comes out and he steals a fate. If the dragon player is going first, awesome. If the dragon player is not going first, you have to put it on a ring you think your opponent isn't going to value, so probably a water or an earth ring. That's tricky. I'm not sure he's always going to trigger the way you want him to trigger.
It's not as bad as you might imagine. There's usually a little bit of fate lying around anyway, where it becomes more... if you're going to be the active player, you're going to be putting it onto a ring that already has fate, so you're going to get a glut of fate when you move it out. If your opponent's going to be going first, you're going to be moving on to a different ring, which will either be one that you're going to pick up, or it kind of moves the options around. So the fact that it's going on to an unclaimed ring, Dragon players I think have gotten quite used to being able to meddle around with that, or to play well with that, I should say instead. And there definitely are considerations in the actual in forcing your opponent into certain rings, and whether you're going to play some cards like the Masterpiece of Jade and that new monk we recently got that lets you move around with fate as well. But again, the fact that this is a courtier and that was a monk, again, is a little frustrating. And it's always a concern I've had, even from the old version of the game, where Dragon have a tendency to kind of get split across multiple main traits, and courtier is one that we haven't had much with, has been important for every other clan initially, but we're going to be moving into a cycle soon where Bushi is going to be far more important, I think.
Alrighty. Let's look at the lion briefly. Akoto Makoto. 3 cost, unique, 4 military, 1 politics, 1 glory, Bushi. After this character wins a conflict, choose a participating courtier character. If that character has no fate on it, discard it. Otherwise, remove 1 fate from it. Alright. The most interesting thing about this card to me says it is a 4 printed military lion character. And Way of the Lion loves them. Other than that, it kind of punishes courtiers, which you won't see a ridiculous number of. But yeah, maybe. It's kind of like a free void ring against courtiers, which actually is better than the void ring, because you can discard them. But yeah, it's I think it might see play because the 4 military, and I don't think it'll see much play other than that. Anybody else have any strong opinions?
I think it punishes Scorpion far worse than it punishes Crane.
Yeah, that's very fair.
And the participating courtier character is something we've seen with Fallen in Battle before. If you've got a character with no fate on it and they've just lost a conflict, they're going to bow out and leave play at the end of the turn anyway. So you don't really care. Obviously, losing a conflict with a courtier with 1 fate on it is going to be annoying. That's a whole turn of that character. But you choose to put that character in. I don't believe Lion have any harpoon effects at the moment. So I don't think the ability is going to trigger ever.
No.
Yeah, it's basically a 4 military skill character for 3, which is not progressive.
No, not terribly good. A bit of a swing and a miss. Alright, next up, 2 cost Phoenix. Chukan Nobue. 1 military, 2 politics, 2 glory, courtier, scholar. Card abilities triggered by our opponents cannot cause cards to be discarded from your hand. What do you think, Justin? What do you think?
I think Shardage. The ability is so evenly and timing dependent that it may as well not exist. And apart from that, a 1/2 courtier scholar for 2 is not where Phoenix want to be putting their fate. So I think she's a complete swing and miss. I can't foresee a situation. I mean, unless if Crane Force Discard goes absolutely buck wild in the next few weeks and months and becomes like the dominant S tier deck in the environment, then yeah, absolutely she'll have a place. But I mean, those basically the only situation I can imagine where she would see play. Apart from that, she's just too niche, too unreliable, and completely off message. Just completely off message for what Phoenix are doing. I mean, I suppose she does protect you from restoration of balance.
Yeah.
And on that basis alone, I should love her, but I still don't know. No.
This really feels like the non-Crane cards. Like, one of the things about this pack that makes it feel even stronger for Crane is that the non-Crane cards are pretty much duddish. They're all kind of meh. Or, so Crane are getting a lot and everyone else is kind of getting a bunch of dolts that aren't going to see play.
Yeah, I think this is just the difficulty of designing cards to be anti one clan rather than pro a clan. Although I'm not entirely sure why card discard is suddenly a Crane focus. I mean,
It has been for ages.
what have
They
they had?
have the Paragon.
Yeah,
you
so they
discard a
recently
card if she's attacking them.
recently got Paragon. But what was
They've
before
got the 0-3, whose name I forget. It was -3. Every time your opponent plays an action, they have to discard a card. His name escapes me.
So yeah, these are relatively new additions, and you know that other character that you can't remember because your opponent just plays Guest of Honor instead.
Yeah.
So I mean, what is more interesting for me, or from a mechanic point of view, the fact that the scholar may be relevant for the Phoenix eventually. The fact that this is another character that they can honor up with that other 2 cost Shigenja Courtier could be good. But the fact that it's another family for the Phoenix. How many families do they need? They're getting a lot of minor or a lot of vassal family focus. Which
come
is
on.
cool.
I gotta say, I adore the art. I absolutely love the art of the uncut. But yeah, I mean, she's fine, but there just isn't a deck for her at the moment. And like I said, the ability is so niche. And yeah, like you want to be proactive with what you really do. You want to be imposing your game plan as much as you possibly can on your opponent. And to play like a purely meta game character like this, the effect would need to be broader, much more disruptive. And it's just not. So, yeah.
Alrighty, let's move on to the Scorpion end of the chapter. 3 cost, Baishi Daryu. 2 military, 2 politics, unique, 2 glory, courtier scholar, action. During a conflict in which this character is participating, choose a status token on another character in play, move that token to this character. Alright. Baishi Daryu is, of course, the previous fiction was the illegitimate child of, well, claimed legitimate, but actually the illegitimate child of Baishi Hatari and Doji Hatari and Baishi Kichiko. And
It's
in this,
unlikely in this scenario.
it might be the same, but that would involve some magic we don't previously know about. So yeah, interesting. I'm not really that impressed by this character. Stealing an honor token is probably okay for the Scorpion because they've got some 2 glory people. But yeah, it's not terrible, but Scorpion have so many great guys that the slot I'm just not super feeling it. I'm not feeling like, oh yeah, super good. I mean, better than some Courtier and Scholar are Scholar's kind of random and Scorpion. Courtier is good. But yeah, he's, maybe for your, like, I mean,
No.
how
No.
often? No, no.
No, just no. Like he relies on your opponent having character, and sure, against Crane, that's almost a guarantee. It's far from a guarantee against any other clan in the game.
Yeah.
And Scorpion are leaving out far better characters than this. So there's just not a hope he ever sees a sniff of play.
So
that said, like the flavor of the ability for who he is and what he's done so far in the story is absolutely fantastic. But unfortunately, it just doesn't translate into an effective card in the game.
Yeah.
So this actually to me looks like a fantastic Crane card. If you had this in blue, you'd be able to take a character that was honoring up with a kind of continuous effect, move the honor up effect over. You've got 2 glory, so you're getting an extra +2/+2, making this a 4/4 character, and then your original character can go off and get themselves honored again. That's good. With Scorpion, it's the exact opposite. They dishonor their own characters. They don't want to move the dishonor onto this 2 glory character that they have. And on the other side of it, they cannot rely on their opponent honoring up. What should have been a kind of hallmark character, really has suddenly become significant in the story, is going to be really big in the upcoming fictions and just isn't going to see play, I think.
I guess the best uptake of them is to send out a high glory Scorpion character, honor them, smash province, send them home bowed. The next conflict, Dario steals that honor token, so it does double duty. But that seems a small enough payoff, really.
Well, you got to get them into the conflict, right?
No, you don't.
Oh no, just in play. It's just in play.
Just play.
Oh, that's not too bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Like weirdly, you'd actually prefer that to with the new stronghold for Scorpion. You prefer to be able to move around the Dishonored token, so you could straighten whoever you want. But yeah, okay. Yeah, let's move on.
2 cost Armament Artisan. Time for the Unalines. 2 military, 0 politics. Bushi Mantis Clan. 1 glory. Reaction. After another character you control is honored, honor this character. Baz, any thoughts about chain honoring?
Yeah.
Yeah.
2 cost 3/1 in theory if you were honoring up anyway. No, I don't like it.
Is this guy for some sort of honor deck? We just go, I have my, my Armament Artisan out, I've got my the political one, the crane one that honors another person when they honored. And you play one way of the crane. Oh, 3 honor characters. Woo, 3 honor.
And then the Unicorn Stronghold turn 2. No.
Yeah. No, I don't think so.
Yeah, it's a bad card. I think we can move on.
Or even more of that, it's just a vanilla and boring card, which is the most damning of all.
But I mean, vanilla and boring are fine, but
yeah, a little bit, just a little bit.
But it's just not good enough. Like it just doesn't.
All right, moving on. We're into the conflict deck section of the evening. 0 attachment, political sanction, 0 cost, 0 politics, 0 military. Condition: play only during a political conflict in which you count more current political skill than your opponent and only on participating characters. Character. Attached character cannot trigger its abilities. 1 influence. So, Justin, what do you think?
It's Crane's version of Cloud the Mind with a whole heap more restrictions. Yeah, I mean, it is potentially very, very destructive. Like Cloud the Mind can absolutely turn a game on its head and completely change the course and tempo on the board. Political sanction is probably isn't going to be that powerful because it can't be played pre-conflict or post-conflict. Once you get later on into the turn, so you're very, very limited in your opportunities to play it and who you can play it against. But Crane can Crane can effectively count on having more political skill against almost any other clan in most games and in most cases in most political conflicts. So it should be playable in a majority of cases. It's a powerful ability. The opportunity cost and just the awkwardness of playing it in general is probably going to count against it. So I and I suppose the other thing, it only affects triggered abilities. It doesn't affect cards that
no Tadaka, no Kasada,
no guest of honor.
Yeah, absolutely, and so actually I revised my earlier maybe to a definitely no. It's just not good enough. It's not going to it's not going to reliably hit the vitally important characters you want it to. So no, that's a big no for me.
Alrighty then, let's take a look at another card. Another attachment, Letter from the Daimyo. 1 cost, plus 0 military, plus 2 politics. Attached to a character you control, restricted. Reaction: after attached character wins a political conflict, sacrifice this attachment. Your opponent chooses and discards 2 cards from his or her hand. 2 influence. Okay, so this clearly takes a hand slot, so you got to be holding the writ when you're about to present it, because it's restricted. It is a middling 2 politics buff that you can sack to strip 2 cards from your opponent's hands. So it's an alternate, more expensive Spies of Court, which doesn't have the Dishonor requirement. Yeah, it's the Crane hand control deck. I could see it becoming a thing. This card is
real. I think this card is real. Not necessarily on its own, because your opponent getting to choose and discard the 2 cards is significantly worse. I mean, vastly worse than random discard, which Ring of Earth and Spies of Court are. But I mean, if a Crane player goes, I declare political Earth, he sign these characters, I play a letter from the daimyo, I win, I now play Spies of Court, you can look forward to discarding 5 cards from your hand. That's bananas. And then on top of that, they have the
Wasaki Pupil.
So yeah, absolutely. Just going, cards. Well, yeah, you can bid 1 now, and you are operating without a hand. I think this card is absolutely real, and if that archetype is viable, which it very well may be a backbone card in it.
Yeah. I think that's fair points.
So you think Chugan Nobe has got maybe some spots after all?
No, still doesn't. Like, you have, first of all, you have to meet a Crane player, then you have to meet a Crane card. Yeah. Oh, I'd also just like to say the other archetype that I fucking love, like mass discard and just not allowing your opponent to play the game, is again just like, it feels like we're back in the 90s.
Is this something that the Scorpion would be worthwhile slashing?
Oh yeah, I mean any Dishonor clan. I would seriously consider this for any Dishonor clan. I mean, it helps you win the political conflict in the first place, and then once done, you can just sack it to force them to discard. So I think any Dishonor oriented deck, any deck that is decided it's going to bid 1, the card is amazing.
And yeah, if you run into a Restoration of Bounce and you've got 8 cards in hand and you're discarding out of 4, you're cursing and swearing. But if there's 2 letters of the daimyo, it's basically the exact same effect, possibly worse, because if you're sitting at 4 cards and they win this conflict and then ditch both of their letters from the daimyo, all of a sudden you're sitting on 0. Okay. Every time I look at this card, it's going up and up and up.
Yeah, this card is absolutely for real.
All right,
and
let's take a look at another card that is definitely for real. Gossip, 0 cost event, limited. No more than 1 limited card can be played by each player each round. Isn't it sad that they need to remind us what the limited trait does? Because there's 3 of them so far, right?
Yeah.
3 limited cards.
Was it Dispatch? Yeah. Oh, Jesus, Dispatch. Oh, God.
Yeah.
It hurts.
It does. So this is theoretically a restriction, but whatever. Action. Name a card. Until the end of the phase, each opponent cannot play cards from his or her hand with that name. 3 influence. Baz. Is Gossip a destructive force?
I've definitely heard a lot of people talking about it, because this is a very, very interesting card to include. The fact that you can only play 1 per turn probably means if it is super busted, you're probably not going to see more than 2 in a deck, because you're probably going to be playing at turn 3 or turn 4, maybe for your last conflict.
I'm pretty sure you'll still see 3 of this card if it's being played.
Okay. But the thing about it is, if you never really know with cards like this if your opponent has the counterplay, if that card that you're naming is actually in their hand or not. It kind of brings me back to the days when we were playing Policy Debate, because sometimes Policy Debate was more influential in the fact that you could see their hand, work out what the perfect turn was, and then play that perfect turn. With Gossip, you can kind of do something similar. You can work out your worst case scenario and then remove elements of that from the turn, and then attempt to play out the rest of the turn based on that. So if they had that card that was going to blow you out, you're in trouble. You've managed to dodge that bullet. You're going to play it next turn, presumably. And if they didn't have it in hand, you're after essentially wasting the card for a little bit of more, self-assurance, security in your play. You kind of risk some things that you couldn't otherwise. The big plays, the 3 cost, or even the 5 cost events. You're terrified that they're going to get cancelled by maybe a censure. You can play Gossip, name censure. They'll either censure it, which gets a censure out of hand, or they won't, which means you can move on and play those cards without censure. It also snips any 2-card combos in the bud. And it's not just events. They can name any card whatsoever, and there's all those effects like Kayuda Nasawa that play cards as if they're in your hand. So yeah, there's certainly there's a lot of interesting play in it. I do think it's a fantastic card. I think it's a really good card. There certainly will be games where it'll be completely useless, and I do think there will be games where basically it'll win the game.
Personally, I look at this and I think that people are saying it's a high skill card. I think it's a medium skill card. I think most of the time what you're going to do is you're going to go, okay, I will name your cancel if I think you're playing cancel. And then I'm going to sit here with my voice of honors and either my defend your honor, or if I'm playing a more dually heavy deck, or my censure if I'm playing a more courtier favor controlly deck, and I'm going to cancel anything I don't like, and you're not going to be able to basically get anything through. And I think that's fairly nasty to play against. I think this card is in a lot of ways reminiscent of Tadaka, in that you can go, okay, what card don't I want you playing? That's the card. And if you know your matchups well, that's pretty strong. Justin, any final thoughts?
Yeah, it's until end of phase is, I suppose, one of the notable things. I mean, it's off basically for the turn if you're naming a conflict card or a card that's going to affect conflicts. But I mean, as has been a theme that's run through all of these previews, it's another terrible, terrible card that just tells your opponent they don't get to play. You don't get to do anything. Like, I discard all your cards. You don't get to do anything. All your character is assigning. You don't get to do anything. I stop you from declaring military conflicts. You don't get to do. As much. I mean, this is absolutely a powerful card. Much more. This card is much more about tempo than it is about control necessarily, because you are putting yourself down. You're putting yourself back a card to gain an unspecified advantage or potential advantage in the future, or at least during the course of the upcoming turn. It feels, I mean, it's powerful no matter what. Like, are you facing Unicorn if they got a Chagatai in their provinces? Well, you're probably going to name Charge. Are you on the attack against Scorpion or against another Crane player? Well, you're going to name Voice of Honor. So it's just another card that just tells your opponent they don't really get to play too well. I mean, its power can't be argued, but overall, again, it's just another card that's me.
It also
question what the hell they're doing.
It really feels like a card that should have to be played in the action phase before a conflict. The fact that you can play this during a conflict after your opponent's committed is just brutal.
Yeah.
It's yeah. Because you can go, it counters defend your honor, because you can just be going, okay, no defense. Well, clearly you want that ring. I'm going to gossip, defend your, or just start gossip, display of power. And that's like, wow, that's lame.
No, that's awesome. Screw display of power.
Yeah. Well, I think display is possibly one of the candidate cards for the restricted list, just because of the interaction with Tadaka. So
that's true. We have yet to see that, but we will be seeing.
But it's gossip is another negative card and a lot of cards. So,
sorry. I mean, all right. We've always kind of talked about how we think the game should be, and I think it got out of our hands in the base set and really has just accelerated since then. So, gossip just is more of the same.
Oh yeah, absolutely. John is just very angry that I don't know, even daring to complain about display of power being on the list, which I'm not. I'm absolutely not. Anything that makes Tadaka less oppressive to play against is a win in my book. But yeah, John's just salty. in his design deck. Has one by one found its way onto this.
Absolutely. Okay, we're getting to the closing stages here. Pushing on. So we've got a 1-cost philosophy action. The spear rushes forth. 1 fate. Philosophy. Action. During a military conflict, discard an honor token from a participating friendly character and choose a participating character your opponent controls. Bow that character for influence. What are we thinking, Justin?
I don't know why it's 4 influence, because really only Crane can play this reliably. Maybe Lion. Maybe not do it. The card is fine. It's restricted to military, which is off flavor for Crane in general, but maybe that's a point in his favor, actually, because it gives them a bit of control in conflicts where they're generally weaker. Discarding an honor token from a participating friendly card.
I'm not sure that's true anymore. Like Crane.
Yeah, actually, in fairness, I think Crane can put forth a very strong military deck if they want. But yeah, discard an honor token for participating friendly character. Not a huge cost. I mean, it's not no cost by any stretch of the imagination. And Brash Samurai just keeps getting better and better. And you bow a character, and it costs 1 fate. So a 1 fate event for bowing a character, that's just about right. It has an additional cost, can only be used during military conflicts. It's probably just about on par with most other single target 1 fate bow actions, like in mid-defeat and so on, which means it probably won't see a lot of play, maybe a bit of splash play, 1 or 2 copies, but I'm not massively, not hugely impressed by this card.
I think Crane will play it.
It's fine. It's fine.
It's a good bow action, and bow actions are pretty strong, so I'll always look at it like that. I think it'll see play in Crane. I don't know if anybody else is going to put the work in and put that hefty influence cost in as well. That's a lot of influence. That is, you're spending a lot to get that.
Because I think the only other clan that would really be looking at this would be Lion. And, if this was 1 influence, Lion would slot 3Ds in, would work harder on honoring up their guys, and it would be a really strong addition to their decks. But it being 4 influence,
and it's the Lion clan. You don't get to have. So sorry.
Not sure what that was, but sounded violent.
All right. Courteous scheming. 2 fate cost. Action. During a political conflict, initiate a political duel against the character your opponent controls of his or her choice. Resolve the duel. The controller of the duel's winner may declare an additional political conflict this round. Max 1 per round. 3 influence. Now, interesting. This is a whole lot more, you know what, I probably shouldn't block political attacks in the Crane. And I probably shouldn't make political attacks against the Crane, because this is just asking to get blown out. Is this card going to see any play outside the Crane? Can the Scorpion leverage this card? Possibly. I think the Scorpion might actually consider this one in a politically focused conquest deck. If they decided to invest in that, they could. They've got some very, very potent high politics characters, and some characters like Shoju, which are a nightmare to face against in the political one. They've got Harpoon for political conflicts. They can be like, okay, let's go in there, let's get an additional political conflict. There's some interesting interactions as well, where if you're going first and you're playing against Unicorn, and you courteous scheming during a political conflict, you might be able to get I think you can get the first, you can steal that 5th conflict that turn. And because of course you can't have 6 conflicts in a turn because you just run out of rings. So I think it's an interesting card. I think I think this is really going to see, I think it's going to see some play. I'm not sure if it'll work out for people. This is really a conquest deck, but it's for the political conquest deck. And yeah.
I think it might see some play in Dishonor in theory. Like, you attack your political conflict, they're going to try to defend to save themselves that point of honor. You then get them into a duel. They're going to have to bid 1 because they can't afford to lose the honor. And that, then you get to trigger another political conflict, which may end up being undefended and get to your ring of choice. So, you might be able to squeeze out a fire or air that was unexpected. Because with the Dishonor decks, in theory with the honor decks as well, you're more interested in triggering ring effects and for the Dishonored deck specifically, getting unopposed conflicts. Those small incremental shifts can be important. 2 Fate, though, has to be during a political conflict. It's a duel, which means you have to have an opposing character, which means if you've managed to get an undefended, you're not going to be able to trigger this. Yeah, I don't think I'm liking it. I think there are lots of better cards you can play. It's a nice idea, but no, I'm not necessarily a fan.
I kind of like it. I think it's strong. Again, for conflict, for conquest. Pulling a third conflict out of nowhere means that you can be on someone's stronghold very unexpectedly. So yeah, I think it's super good. And Scorpion with Cute and Bayushi will be able to straighten guys and go into another conflict again with relative impunity. So I can definitely see this as a finisher for conquest oriented crane decks. Absolutely, 100%.
I think it's one of the best cards for Shoju in a while to be able to go. I'll send a little political attack, and everyone's like, I'll defend. It's like, actually, no, I'm going to duel you now because I've got great politics because I'm Scorpion. And then Shoju can come in for the last one, put your opponent in a really tough spot. So yeah, I actually, it is expensive, but I think you back this up with action cancel to negate their negate. You want this one to get through. You want this one to get through.
I think Hiroe is the real hero. Yes. Certainly in Scorpion, Hiroe is the real hero with this.
Yeah,
is full of courteous scheming.
Absolutely.
But it's a good. But I mean, the thing is, Magistrate Station and Crane as well. Like if you find yourself on the wrong side of a Magistrate Station with some courteous scheming, you're going to know all about it. So it's. I think it's a fine card.
Yeah,
I think it'll have a place.
That Winter Course Host is a lot scarier if you got a Magistrate to straighten them, and you got 2 political conflicts a turn. You're like, ooh, this is getting a little saucy. Ooh.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about another expensive action you don't want getting cancelled. Festival of the Fortunes, 3 fate cost. Festival, action, honor each character, 1 influence. Super simple, super potent. What do you think, Justin?
Yeah. If you're talking about, for honor decks, aren't percent known for spreading the board. They have an awful lot of 1 and 2 cost characters if they want to do so. So again, this could be the final push for going over the top in an honor deck. You're not going to care about honoring your opponent's characters particularly much unless they're all glory monsters and you give your opponent the ability to smash your provinces completely. But it's one of those cards, like, it's very expensive. You're going to want to see this at the end of the game if you see it at all. In an absolutely if a 100% dedicated honor runner comes out, I would expect to see maybe one copy of this in it. But apart from that, the opportunity cost is high, the fate cost is high. It's not going to see play outside the most dedicated honor runners if that deck exists, and even then, it might not make the cut. So
it can, of course, be played at the end of the round, but you definitely want to be able to protect it from negation. Is this the piece of the puzzle for the Unicorn honor deck to make a bunch of tokens and then honor them all?
More importantly, does this make Tactician's Camp in line playable? So it would get +1 military on all of their honor tactics.
No, but it might work for the Unicorn. The Unicorn also had. There's also the Lion one, isn't there? Glorious Victory.
There is, yeah.
And just honors all your own guys, and the Lion Splash is generally a bit friendlier to Unicorn. Yeah, I don't know.
Like, if you could get a board situation where you honoring up all your characters will have a big, massive impact because you have the glory, and your opponent isn't getting as much out of it, you could see a significant skill shift with this card, which could be rough.
I've got a big board with Phoenix. I would be more than happy to spend 3 fate to honor several characters.
Alrighty. Next up, we've got a Unicorn Clan character, in the conflict slot. 3 cost, Shinja Haruko, unique. 3 military, 2 politics, 1 glory, Bushi, cavalry, action. During a conflict in which this character is participating, choose an honored character, move that character to the conflict. 3 influence requirement. Baz, is this going to see any play?
Don't think so. So, we have seen a couple of 3-cost 3/3s, which are borderline at best, I think. And moving a honored character into the conflict. So you drop this into a conflict, and then you can move a honored character. Oh, okay. So you can actually, it doesn't have to be one of your characters, right? You can actually move one of your opponent's honored characters into a conflict.
You absolutely can.
That is kind of cool. So it's actually got a kind of a semi-harpoon effect. But to be able to reliably trigger it, you'd need to be able to honor up your opponent's characters, which is a bit weird. I guess if you're going to be playing Festival of Fortunes, it'll key nicely in with it. But no, I don't think this is going to see much play, unfortunately.
I think the one thing said for it is there is another unicorn deck that has all the battle maidens, honors them, and becomes a kind of a pseudo tower deck. Right? There is a deck there. I don't think it's good enough. I think the weenie deck would be a lot better. Could this be splashed into Crane? Maybe. But again, I think they probably have better options. Though the flexibility of moving an honor character in is actually pretty good. And this is kind of very much from nowhere. You drop a 3-cost person and then it pulls another person in. It's a big change up. Like that can seriously change the maths on a battle. So I like that aspect of it. I'm not sure it's going to see a lot of play, but it might see some. Any thoughts, Justin? Are we happy enough?
We're happy enough. The opportunity costs are just a little high for this to see play, but you know, in the dream of dreams scenario, it makes falling in battle into one of the happiest things you're ever going to. As harpoon in your opponent's bow, Doji Uji. You win the conflict by fire, and you blow his ass right off the table.
That's true.
It would be fun. But yeah, she's very very expensive for a conflict character, and really the ability just doesn't light her up.
Yeah.
So for now, no, I'm afraid.
All right, let's move on to our second last card here. It is also an attachment, but an unaligned one. Dash cost, which means it cannot be played normally. That is not a 0, it is a dash. +2 military, +2 politics, item, restricted. It's Daimyo's Gunbai. Action. During conflict, if this card is in your hand, reveal it, initiate a military duel against the character your opponent controls of his or her choice. Resolve the duel. Put this card into play attached to the duel's winner if able, otherwise discard it. Huh. Interesting. So this is really basically a dual trigger on a stick that you can just reveal and use. So it's another way to trigger a duel. Yeah, that's an interesting card, particularly for some of the decks looking to trigger a lot of duels in a turn. Any thoughts?
It is unique, which is interesting, because if you play it, then you can't play it again, right? Because you can't play 2 unique cards into it. So while getting a duel out is kind of cool, and getting an extra +2/+2 on top of that is fun, you know, there's only so many of these that you can actually play.
I think you can play it again, because put this card into play attached to the duel's winner if able, otherwise discard it.
Oh, okay. So then you're just triggering it for the duel effect. All right, then you got an interesting situation there then, where you're able to initiate duels against people who have too many restricted items already, and they definitely can't get this. Or if there is one in play already, you can duel knowing that the winner is irrelevant. They're not going to get the bonus. Yeah, an extra duel is cool. You know, is it worthwhile for Kyuden Kikita? So you'll play this, hopefully win, get honored one way or the other, and get a free +2/+2. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, this can feed the die show. You can discard the You can attach it and then discard it to gun by if you've already got the Daisho on. All right.
Definitely see play. It's a fun card. I like it.
Any thoughts, Justin? Are we good enough?
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, it's a dual activator. That's basically what it does. It gives you +2/+2 as well, so your character is going to be set up and rounded for any kind of duel you want to fight. Yeah, it's whether it'll be good enough to see deck space or to see play just because of deck space concerned. I don't know, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with the card. So,
all right. One last card. We'll be done on under 2 hours in a shocking display of brevity. Retreat. 1 cost event. Unaligned. Action. During a military conflict, choose a participating character you control. Move that character home. Retreat. Baz, will you be retreating much?
No, never. It seems terrible. So 1 cost moves your characters home only during a military conflict. So I guess you attack military, play this to get out so you can attack again. No, I don't like it. Like if it was 0 costs, you might consider it and then still not play it.
If this was 0, I would play this in a dedicated military conquest deck. Just to go overcommit with the Rhino. You don't block, cool, I'll retreat a guy back. And I'll have him for the second attack.
Yeah, but the thing about that is it's competing for deck space with other good cards.
It is.
I think that it's a consideration. But yeah, 1 cost, only military. No, I don't like it at all.
All right. Well, that was the Crane pack. I think it's a pretty strong pack for the Crane. There is a bunch of really, really strong cards in there. I'm looking there, and like Uji, of course, jumps out at me. Gossip's incredibly strong. I think there are some really, really very potent cards in there. What else really jumped out at me? The Wasaki Pupil, the Stronghold. Yeah, like I see a lot of good stuff in there. Anything jump out for you, Buzz?
Yeah, similar. There's a lot. My current thought is I'm wondering how these are getting designed. Is this the first pack that's just had Tyler? Is this the first pack, or did he also do the Unicorn pack? I think the Scorpion pack was a mix. I think he'd come in part way through the Scorpion pack and only kind of got to tweak it rather than actually develop it from scratch.
This has probably been designed around the second half of 2018. So,
yeah, okay. Yeah, no, it looks like a solid pack for the Crane. Obviously, I'm going to be picking it up anyway. If I was a little bit more of a discerning purchaser, what would I get out of it? Obviously, if you're splashing Crane, there's a couple of good options in there. If you're not,
if you're interested in dueling, definitely. If you're splashing Crane, definitely. I think most of the characters, the non-Crane characters, are side grades at best. So yeah. I think it's a limited appeal a pack to another clan. I think it's an extremely strong pack for Crane. We're being asked how does it compare to the Unicorn Clan pack. I think it's better than the Unicorn Clan pack in that it expands on some of Crane's strengths already and gives them some, like there's some cards here that'll just go, like Gossip is just going to go into decks, and it enables their hand control deck. It enables their conquest deck a lot as well in a number of ways, both with Uji and with ideas like courteous scheming. So I think it's going to be quite strong. Justin, any opinions?
No, it's a very strong pack with a really wide streak of negative cards running through it. So that's I'll keep on banging that drum.
Yeah, definitely.
I find the design direction of this pack to be exasperating. To be honest, it's 2019. Card games have come an awfully long way in the last 20 years, and that feels like this is where this was designed. But yeah, it is what it is for the time being. We'll see how it all plays out. I mean, a lot of these cards may not be nearly as bad as I think in practice as they are in theory. But there's just an awful lot of telling your opponent they don't get to play the game, and yeah, it's a bit of a trend. Like we've complained, like certainly I have complained about this before. But yeah, I was just kind of hoping for something a bit more proactive and interactive and joyous, and that is not what we got. But yeah, we'll see how it all shakes out.
Absolutely. Now, on Monday, we've got L5R news coming up. They are going to announce a number of things. The new clan roles, which were voted on over the course of the first round of, I'm going to say Emerald Championships and be wrong. Or not Emerald Championships, like Elemental Championships. The first round of them, they'll be voted, so there'll be the new clan roles. There will be an updated rules reference and an update to the restricted list. I have heard rumors about something bad is about to happen to Tadaka. What are your scoops, lads?
Oh, is Tadaki getting banned? Because that would be amazing.
I've heard some people talk about errata. I've heard some people talk about banning. I've heard some people talk about restricted list.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he's already on the restricted list, so you'd need to add something else pretty meaningful.
So
maybe they stick him in. Sorry,
Supernatural
Faz, go ahead.
Storm was one I heard people banning around because it's a card that seems to have been designed for an earlier time when there weren't quite as many Shigenja, but with Atten, Kayuden, and Asawa.
With regard to what should happen with Supernatural Storm is that Supernatural Storm should be errated to be once per conflict, like the other really big boosts like Banzai and Court Games. And the card would be absolutely fine.
I think the Phoenix deck is a really, really solid deck with strong cards that are working well together. Obviously, you can point to a couple of key cards like Tadaka that are problematic. I guess they'll try pick apart it a little bit, but at the same time, despite everyone knowing it's a strong deck, it hasn't been dominating the tournament scene as much as people were initially expecting. We're just getting the Crane pack, and Crane were in a decent position. We've just got the Unicorn pack, and some people are saying that Unicorn is now top of the heap. It's pushed all the way up there, and the Unicorn are actually the deck to really be concerned by. We're in a new environment, and good luck to Tyler in his considerations. Knit Master is a weird one for me because it's completely dropped out. No one's ever going to play it. Miramoto's Fury is another one like that. Like, will we see For Greater Glory getting taken off? There are interactions that are already happening that have the same justification for removal as For Greater Glory. Specifically, Crab can play Charge and Reprieve, but for some reason, Charge and For Greater Glory isn't an option. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how if they pick away at some of the cards that have already been added rather than just adding more, because up till now, for the most part, they've just been taking whatever the top decks are and then adding a few more cards out of that to try trim whatever the kind of top tier deck is. I'd love them to do something crazy like put Let Go on it. I know this is a discussion that's gone back and forth lots of times, and people have certainly said to us how scary a world without Let Go will be, but I'd be interested to see what that world looks like just for change.
Alrighty. So we will be interested to see what comes out of that on Monday. Any other news cropping up, guys? Anything to talk about? I don't think so.
I can't think of anything.
Yeah.
There were, I suppose we saw the first previews for the Lion Clan pack as well.
Yeah.
So we'll get to those at a different point. But I don't know. Is there relief coming for the beleaguered legions of the Lion Clan? I certainly hope so.
I've seen people suggest errating For Greater Glory to remove the influence cost from it so nobody else can splash it, because the interaction between the Unicorn and the Lion deck is... The problem is, Unicorn goes, I'll steal For Greater Glory, and it's ridiculous in my deck, so it's got to be restricted, despite the fact that it probably could be unrestricted and give the poor Lion a few more tools. But yeah, it'd be interesting. So we'll have a reaction to that in 2 weeks, I guess.
Yeah, worth mentioning is a new story went up.
Yes,
Tactical Maneuvers, which is the direct consequence of Eric's decisions in the Worlds most recently. So that was it's not a particularly long story, but it's really cool seeing players choices have direct effects, and I think it's really cool that Eric got that.
Absolutely. Okie dokie. Well, that was an interesting episode of Imperial Advisor. Any technical issues, I take full responsibility for. And if the sound quality is terrible again, it is all my fault. But thank you for coming along, everybody. Cheers, Baz. Cheers, Justin. Bye-bye, everybody.
Take care. All
Have
the
a great
best.
week. Bye.